Moreover, even if they couldn't finish off the foe saint army within 1 hour, he could simply inject another 3,000 mana stones to replenish the world mirror's energy. Unlike defensive magic arrays, the world mirror did not have a cooldown for replenishing its energy reserves. The only trade-off was that once the world mirror was activated, it would remain active until it exhausted all its energy. It couldn't be turned off midway the way defensive magic arrays could. Most importantly, he had expended a lot of magic crystals in this battle. If he couldn't earn some EXP from these foe saint monsters, he would eat a huge loss. After all, no matter how many monsters the fortress's static defenses killed, none of the defenders inside the fortress would gain any EXP. At most, the defenders would get to collect the loot of the monsters. However, the foe saint monsters were basically beggars when it came to items. Even if they did drop items, those items would be of inferior quality. Their only saving grace was the above-average EXP they provided when killed. After Xueqi finished speaking, he flew out of the mobile fortress and chased the fleeing foe saint saboteurs. Although the incomplete world mirror couldn't reduce the basic attributes of the hostile units trapped within it, it did reduce their movement speed and reaction speed. The movement speed of enemies flying in the air, in particular, was at least 60% slower. Furthermore, all of the foe saint saboteurs had suffered heavy injuries, which meant their flying speed became incredibly slow. After Xueqi's departure, Fire Dance quickly carried out his commands before leaving the mobile fortress together with Violet Cloud. As for Lifeless Thorn and Solitary 9, the two of them had long since followed Xueqi out of the fortress. After all, mythic monsters were incredibly rare in the outside world. This was especially true for level 140+ mythic monsters. Now that the 1,000 foe saint saboteurs before them were heavily injured, these mythic monsters were basically walking sacks of EXP. It would be a huge waste to let them get away. In less than 10 seconds, Xueqi caught up with a group of several dozen saboteurs. He immediately brandished the Light of Two Worlds. Lightning Edge. The next moment, a river of lightning washed over the area ahead of him and extended up to 500 yards away. Damages exceeding 100 million then began appearing above the saboteurs' heads one after another. After the skill's 7-second duration ended, the saboteurs that were originally at critical HPs crumbled into ashes. Subsequently, Xueqi's experience bar rose rapidly. In just 1 second, he broke through to level 142. Some time later, his experience bar settled at 82% of level 142. The saboteurs were far more generous with EXP than the standard mythic monster. As for the 11 saboteurs that survived his attack, Xueqi used Formless Blade, a tier 4 legacy skill he had spent 110 legacy skill points to learn on them. The next moment, the 13 sword lights the skill created transformed into innumerable shooting stars that struck down at the critically damaged saboteurs. Every one of these attacks dealt over 200 million damage to the mythic monsters, with critical hits dealing over 400 million damage, killing them on the spot. Immediately afterward, another bright glow enveloped Xueqi as he reached level 143. Meanwhile, following the deaths of these foe saint saboteurs, strands of dark gray mist escaped from their corpses and flowed into Xueqi's mind. Every strand of mist that entered his mind increased his affinity with mana by a small margin, and this bonus could be accumulated continuously. What a magical energy! Although I still got soul marks inflicted on me, like when I killed that foe saint devourer, the effect of this strange energy is completely different from the white mist from before. It is incredibly attractive to mana. Xueqi was surprised when he sensed the changes to his body. At this moment, Xueqi wasn't the only person to notice this benefit. The others who had joined in on the chase likewise noticed the benefit of killing the foe saint saboteurs. These foe saint saboteurs might not drop any loot, but they are truly walking treasure troves. If some of our tier 3 experts get this benefit, they should have a much easier time getting promoted to tier 4. After killing off 2 foe saint saboteurs, Unyielding Heart was surprised by the benefit he received. Some distance away, Illusory Words also killed a saboteur and noticed the unexpected benefit. Surprised, she exclaimed, "These saboteurs are probably of greater help to us tier 4s. If we can continuously boost our mana affinity, we'll understand mana more easily. This will be of great help in breaking through the limits of our mana bodies." Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU. After reaching tier 4, improving one's mana body became of utmost importance. Now, these foe saint saboteurs were providing them with a shortcut for doing so. Upon thinking up to this point, the two of them hastened their killing speed. Now they weren't just killing the saboteurs for EXP but for the sake of further improving themselves. For a time, Xueqi and the others could be seen frenziedly mowing down the fleeing faux saint saboteurs, their levels rising rapidly. Beast Emperor, who had reached the map's border, couldn't help gnashing his teeth angrily. He had gone to great lengths to produce these faux saint saboteurs, only for them to become leveling tools for Xueqi and the others. At this time, he had already lost more than 300 saboteurs. If he weren't afraid of the mobile fortress's offensive capabilities, he definitely would have commanded every surviving saboteur to surround and kill Xueqi's group. Black Flame. I'll make you pay sooner or later. Beast Emperor bellowed, a cold glint flashing in his eyes as he glared at Xueqi, over 10,000 yards away. Meanwhile, Lu Xinglua, who sat beside Beast Emperor, also resolved to make Xueqi pay, both in God's domain and in the real world, for today's loss. Turning to the dense mist before him, Beast Emperor commanded the several hundred faux saint saboteurs around him. Attack! Shatter this damned barrier! Nevertheless, the demonic serpent's attack had failed to break through the seemingly flimsy layer of mist surrounding the map. The strength of this magic barrier was simply unheard of. Since this magic barrier enveloped the entire map, its withstanding Tier 4 attacks was already unbelievable, all the more Tier 5 attacks. With the combination of this magic barrier and the mobile fortress, Zero Wing was most likely invincible in God's domain already. However, Beast Emperor and 100 Ghosts' members evidently had no intention of giving up. After snapping out of their daze, they promptly bombarded the mist layer in a frenzy. In their opinion, even if their attacks failed to destroy the barrier, their attacks had most likely exhausted a significant portion of the barrier's energy reserves. If they pressed their offensive, the barrier would crumble in no time at all. For a time, the faux saint army and ancient demonic serpent blitzed the magic barrier. Meanwhile, Xueqi's group mowed down the faux saint saboteurs they came across. 1 minute. 3 minutes. 10 minutes. At this time, Xueqi's group had already killed over 600 saboteurs. From the EXP they gained, Xueqi had reached level 146, while Fire Dance, Violet Cloud, Unyielding Heart, and Illusory Words had reached level 141. Lifeless Thorn and Solitary 9 were now at level 143. When Xueqi and the others stood only 500 yards away from the faux saint army, Beast Emperor and 100 Ghosts' members finally snapped out of their trance and stopped assailing the barrier. They then looked at Xueqi's group and the distant mobile fortress warily. "It seems we meet again," Xueqi said, smiling as he looked at Beast Emperor and Wind Shadow. "Now, will you surrender quietly? Or do you want me to send you on your way?" Black Flame, don't get too full of yourself. My saboteurs have fully recovered already. Beast Emperor snarled as he glared at Xueqi. Although I only have around 300 left, at this distance, killing you bunch won't be difficult. Beast Emperor's heart was practically bleeding from Xueqi's group killing nearly 700 of his faux saint saboteurs. If not for his fear of the mobile fortress, he would have long since had his faux saint army surround and kill Xueqi's group already. However, unlike Beast Emperor, Wind Shadow was exceptionally calm. "Greetings, Guild Leader Black Flame. I am Wind Shadow, an elder of 100 Ghosts." After taking a deep breath, Wind Shadow continued slowly. 100 Ghosts admits defeat this time. "We are willing to pay ransom for our release and the release of Awakened Abyss." "Elder Wind Shadow?" Jade Leaf was taken aback by Wind Shadow's words. 100 Ghosts was different from the guilds of the main continent. Even the 5 great super guilds were of no significance to 100 Ghosts. Yet, their guild was admitting defeat to Zero Wing. Their guild would turn into a laughingstock for the main continent's various superpowers. Moreover, they wouldn't have any way of explaining this humiliation to the guild's higher-ups. Beast Emperor and Lu Xinglua were also stunned by this situation. They never thought that Wind Shadow would surrender without hesitation. This would undoubtedly reduce their chances of defeating Zero Wing's forces. "Elder Wind Shadow, it seems 100 Ghosts only amounts to this much. To think you are already afraid of Zero Wing before we even start fighting," Beast Emperor ridiculed. "Lord Beast Emperor, 100 Ghosts operates by its own rules. Moreover, 100 Ghosts doesn't have much of a grudge against Zero Wing, to begin with. Our conflict simply stems from one of our juniors ignorantly offending Zero Wing in Sky Spring City. It is only right that he is punished," Wind Shadow retorted nonchalantly. "How righteous of you, Elder Wind Shadow. I am truly in awe." Beast Emperor glared at Wind Shadow. He had never thought that the man would care so little for 100 Ghosts' reputation. It was evident that Wind Shadow was trying to disassociate 100 Ghosts from him in front of Xueqi. Sneering, Beast Emperor said, "Unfortunately, Black Flame won't necessarily spare you." "That's right. I doubt Guild Leader Black Flame will let us off the hook so easily." Chuckling, Wind Shadow added, "But what if I say 100 Ghosts is willing to use a Tier 3 mana set equipment forging design as compensation?" "Have you lost your mind?" Beast Emperor exclaimed in shock. Beast Emperor could tell how powerful Tier 3 mana set equipment was just by looking at the Black Knights seated behind Wind Shadow. If not for their lower levels, they could most likely exhibit combat power on par with the Faux Saint Saboteurs. Even without any Tier 4 players, just 100 Ghosts' possession of this Tier 3 mana set equipment would most likely be enough to deter the 5 great super guilds from clashing with it. Yet, Wind Shadow was actually using the forging design for this divine equipment as ransom? Let alone Beast Emperor and Lu Xinglua. Even Xueqi was stunned by Wind Shadow's offer. Originally, Xueqi had intended to make an exorbitant demand of Wind Shadow. And if Wind Shadow refused his demand, Xueqi would kill 100 Ghosts' members. After all, now that he had the mobile fortress, nobody could threaten Zero Wing's existence. Naturally, he wouldn't need to care about making an enemy of 100 Ghosts. However, Xueqi couldn't help being moved by Wind Shadow's offer. Tier 3 mana set equipment was something he knew plenty about because its existence was recorded in the mana forging notes. However, the volume he owned did not include its production method. Looking at Xueqi, Wind Shadow asked, "May I know if you are willing to conduct this transaction, Guild Leader Black Flame?" "Okay, I agree to your offer," Xueqi said after giving the matter some thought. "However, I will need you to cooperate with my side to kill Beast Emperor's group." Chapter 28. Skyrocketing levels in a towering temple built within a gloomy and silent mountain. A black flash suddenly appeared on the altar in the center of the temple. When this black flash disappeared, Beast Emperor's bandaged figure stood in its place. Apart from Beast Emperor's aura being slightly weaker, his level actually remained the same. He was still at level 132, Tier 4, despite Xueqi having killed him just a moment ago. "Black Flame. You thought you could land a blow on me using the Abyssal Curse? Dream on. I received the Immortal Body Curse from the evil god. Don't even think you can harm me so easily." When Beast Emperor recalled the moment Xueqi killed him, he sneered. "Just you wait. I already have the foundation to evolve a Tier 5 Faux Saint monster. Once I gather enough materials, I'll let your Zero Wing feel the fear of death." The Tier 4 Curse Immortal Body allowed him to get resurrected instantly at his designated evil god's temple without penalty once a day. He could also use the curse to kill himself, and even being under restraints wouldn't stop this curse from activating. This move was the trump card he prepared in case of capture by NPCs. After all, if he got caught by NPCs, particularly the War God's Temple's NPCs, he would be doomed eternally. It was also because of this curse that he no longer had to live in hiding and didn't have to fear capture. "It's a pity I didn't manage to rescue Lu Xinglua. With his help, I could produce the Tier 5 Faux Saint monster much sooner. Once again, it seems I have nobody but myself to rely on," Beast Emperor thought to himself. Unlike himself, Lu Xinglua was only at Tier 3. Xueqi could easily capture Lu Xinglua. Moreover, Lu Xinglua's previous escape from Sky Spring City had tainted his body with evil energy. If Xueqi handed Lu Xinglua over to the War God's Temple, then it would be game over for the latter. Not only would Lu Xinglua have to create a new account, but he would also have to wait over a dozen days before he could do so. But so what if I have to rely on myself? Now that I have that great treasure, let alone 1,000 mythic Faux Saints, I can create even 5,000 mythic Faux Saints in a short time. After thinking up to this point, Beast Emperor opened his spatial bag to take out the great treasure he obtained recently. Panic surfaced on Beast Emperor's face a moment later. "It's gone." After looking through his spatial bag 3 times, Beast Emperor's mind went blank. It couldn't have. At this thought, Beast Emperor's face turned ashen. "Black Flame. I won't rest until you're dead." Beast Emperor bellowed. The deafening roar echoed throughout the silent cavern. At the same time as Beast Emperor got resurrected, near the distant Secret Covenant Tower, Xueqi restrained Lu Xinglua with a darkness bind and captured him with a mobile prison. He gave Lu Xinglua no opportunity to escape or commit suicide. The entire process of Shifeng killing Beast Emperor and imprisoning Lu Xinglua took only 5 seconds, and watching this scene play out made 100 Ghosts' members break out in a cold sweat. This was because Shifeng's attack was astonishingly fast. Even Wind Shadow, a Tier 4 shadow dancer, had reacted to the attack only when Shifeng was already standing in front of Beast Emperor. Moreover, the power of Shifeng's attack was equally incredible. Apart from Tier 4 defensive classes, any other Tier 4 player would most likely die instantly if struck. Meanwhile, after Beast Emperor's death, the Faux Saint army fell into chaos, and the remaining hundreds of thousands of Faux Saint monsters began fleeing in all directions. Only the mythic-ranked Faux Saint saboteurs remained relatively calm. Knowing that they couldn't break the barrier sealing the map, the 300-plus saboteurs promptly swarmed toward Shifeng's group in a last-ditch effort. Foolish resistance. Seeing the saboteurs' reaction, Shifeng took out the Ring of Gospel, injected 5,000 magic crystals into the ring, and activated Miniature World. Immediately, the space within a 5,000-yard radius of Shifeng froze. Simultaneously, a powerful pressure descended from the sky, increasing the weight of all Faux Saint monsters present and reducing their basic attributes and physique drastically. In the blink of an eye, the Faux Saint monsters had their combat power halved. World suppression? Long Day exclaimed in astonishment when he noticed the Faux Saint saboteur's physique and speed plummeting. How many trump cards does this black flame have? Previously, he thought that the remaining 300-plus Faux Saint saboteurs would still bring Zero Wing a lot of trouble. However, seeing the present situation, he found his earlier thoughts laughable. World suppression was different from the suppression effect of ordinary magic barriers. It suppressed a person from all aspects, and even Tier 4 existences with a mana domain couldn't resist it. And if a Tier 4 existence did not possess a mana domain, they couldn't fly within the frozen space. As a result of Shifeng's Miniature World, the Faux Saint saboteurs now possessed combat power at only the entry level of Tier 4. Every one of them had also fallen to the ground after losing their ability to fly. At this time, let alone Tier 4 players, even Tier 3 peak experts could put up a fight against these mythic monsters. Ladies and gentlemen from 100 Ghosts, can you take action now, as per our agreement? Shifeng asked, smiling as he turned to look at 100 Ghosts' members. Or were your words from before merely a joke? You jest, Guild Leader Black Flame. We will certainly adhere to our agreement, Wind Shadow replied, chuckling. With a wave of his hand he commanded, "You bunch, get moving." Obeying Wind Shadow's command, the Black Knight Legion's members promptly intercepted the Faux Saint saboteurs. Although these Black Knights were only at Tier 3, they sported Tier 3 mana set equipment. In terms of raw power, they surpassed even the Faux Saint saboteurs when these monsters were at their peak, let alone now. The next moment, the saboteurs could be seen getting repulsed after just one exchange. They were no match for the Black Knight Legion at all. After glancing at the Black Knights, Shifeng turned to Fire Dance and said, "Fire, have Summer and the others join the fight as well. Everyone should get at least 3 saboteur kills." These Faux Saint saboteurs were absolute treasures. Although they did not drop any loot, the dark gray mist that they released was of incredible value not only to Tier 4 players but also Tier 3 players. Now that the era of Tier 4 had come, it would be best if he helped Alluring Summer and the others reach Tier 4 as well. Okay, I'll have them come right away. Fire Dance nodded and promptly contacted the mobile fortress. As Fire Dance was summoning Alluring Summer and the others, Unyielding Heart and Illusory Word suddenly approached Shifeng. Guild Leader Black Flame, is it possible for you to sell us a dozen or so of these saboteurs? Unyielding Heart asked in embarrassment. We are willing to pay 1 complete Tier 3 legacy for each of saboteur. There was no way the two of them wouldn't covet these Faux Saint saboteurs. With the help of that gray mist, they could increase their guild's peak experts' chances of reaching Tier 4 by a significant margin. At this stage of the game, the various superpowers were all in urgent need of Tier 4 combatants to defend their territories. If their two guilds could gain a few more Tier 4 players within a short period, they would survive these difficult times much more easily. Looking at the embarrassed expressions of the two people before him, Shifeng chuckled and said, "Say no more. Your guilds have sacrificed a lot in helping Zero Wing resist the superpowers. You can each take 30 saboteurs as compensation. I don't need you to pay anything for them." Truthfully, he felt very grateful to Unyielding Soul and Crimson Emperor. If not for the help of these two guilds, Zero Wing couldn't have held the secret Covenant Tower until he returned. Thus, he didn't mind giving away a few faux saint saboteurs. Not to mention, if the two super first-rate guilds grew stronger, they would be of much greater help to Zero Wing as well. Most importantly, Zero Wing didn't have that many Tier 3 players who could make use of the Saboteur's Grey Mist. The Grey Mist could be described as icing on the cake. Like the Crystal of Souls and Soul Water, the Grey Mist was useful only to players with the potential to reach Tier 4. Meanwhile, there were fewer than 20 such players in the present Zero Wing. It also wouldn't serve any purpose to let these players gain more than one stack of the Grey Mist. The help they could gain for their promotion from one stack would be the same as what they could gain from multiple stacks. Hence, it would be much better to use the additional saboteurs to raise the levels of Fire Dance and the others instead. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU, thank you, Guild Leader Black Flame. Unyielding Heart and Illusory Words were jubilant upon hearing Shifeng's words. 60 saboteurs would be more than enough for their two guilds' peak experts. Subsequently, after around an hour of battle, Shifeng and the others annihilated the faux saint army. By then, Shifeng's level had risen from 146 to 148, while Fire Dance and the other Tier 4 members of Zero Wing had risen to level 145. As for Alluring Summer and the other Zero Wing executives who were still stuck at Tier 3, they had risen to level 130 and above. Everyone had leveled up remarkably from this battle. After killing the faux saint army, Windshadow handed a Tier 3 mana set equipment forging design to Shifeng as agreed. And after receiving the forging design, Shifeng released Awakened Abyss from Sky Spring City's prison and let 100 Ghosts' members leave intact once the World Mirror deactivated. With the end of the battle at the Secret Covenant Tower and the disappearance of the World Mirror, news of this battle spread like wildfire. Chapter 28-29 Beast Emperors loot Fire Dragon Empire, Flame Dragon City. The faux saint army got annihilated, and 100 ghosts surrendered? How is that possible? When the various superpowers learned about the outcome of the battle at the Secret Covenant Tower, they were dumbstruck. After all, the forces attacking Zero Wing had included 1,000 mythic-ranked faux saint monsters and the top combatants of 100 ghosts, a mysterious guild that even the 5 great super guilds feared. Nevertheless, such a force had actually lost. Moreover, the loss had been an utter rout, a one-sided massacre. The various superpowers were especially shocked when they saw the video of the purifying light vaporizing a large chunk of the faux saint army and heavily injuring every one of the faux saint saboteurs. They felt as if the system was playing a cruel joke on them when they watched this attack. Meanwhile, inside Frost Heaven's residence, when Mushin read the report her subordinate sent her, she exclaimed in shock, "Amazing! As expected of Zero Wing." Frost Heaven had considered helping Zero Wing out of its predicament. However, after gaining a reserve spot for the 12 great guilds, Frost Heaven had faced many problems. Sky Dragon House and Pride Empire were especially troublesome. The two super guilds had clashed with Frost Heaven on numerous occasions in the Fire Dragon Empire after the competition. In addition, superpowers like Mythology and Miracle secretly interfered with Frost Heaven's operations. This made it incredibly difficult for Frost Heaven to spread its influence across the Fire Dragon Empire. If not for Frost Heaven garrisoning various major NPC cities in the Fire Dragon Empire and gaining a home ground advantage, the guild would have long since gotten torn to shreds. After all, Sky Dragon House and Pride Empire had incredibly deep roots in the Fire Dragon Empire. In fact, some of the Fire Dragon Empire's NPC forces had even allied with the two super guilds. Fortunately, Frost Heaven had also occupied the Snow Lion Kingdom, a coastal country. The kingdom provided Frost Heaven with a continuous supply of resources and funds, allowing the guild to keep fighting in the Fire Dragon Empire. A mobile fortress, is it? Hong Xin Yuan also couldn't help feeling a little envious when he read the information regarding the small mobile fortress. I wonder when we will be able to obtain one of our own? According to the reports, with the offensive and defensive capabilities of the mobile fortress, it could survive in a level 140+ neutral map. This made it a dream facility of all superpowers at this stage of the game. Not only did level 140+ neutral maps allow players to level up much more quickly, but they also held various rare resources, legacies, ancient ruins, and even 7 Luminaries crystals. Originally, players could acquire 7 Luminaries crystals from only a few specific maps. However, all maps above level 140 had a considerable chance of spawning 7 Luminaries crystals. This was because the random team dungeons and time-limited regional dungeons that appeared in these maps all had a small chance of dropping 7 Luminaries crystals. However, level 140+ maps were incredibly dangerous. Not only did foreign energies that would rapidly corrode a player's body permeate these maps, but powerful monsters were also rife in them. Although level 140+ maps were not as dangerous as Forbidden Lands, beast tides frequently occurred there, regardless of night and day. Even Tier 4 experts would perish if they accidentally came across one of these beast tides and got surrounded. Most importantly, level 140+ maps were the main hunting ground of NPCs. Now that Zero Wing had the mobile fortress, Hong Xinyuan could already imagine just how much of an advantage the guild would have in the future. In fact, its complete control over the secret Covenant Tower already provided it an advantage not even super guilds possessed. At this point, all Zero Wing needed to do was wait until it had a sufficiently large number of Tier 3 players. With ample strength, the guild could begin occupying various resource spots and NPC cities in God's domain. Eventually, Zero Wing might even become an existence rivaling the 5 great super guilds. At the same time, Cold Shadow, in the distant Apocalypse Empire, also received this shocking piece of news. Interesting. Even the Faux Saint army and 100 ghosts are helpless against them. Cold Shadow revealed a rare smile on her face when she read the report her subordinate sent her. After suffering such a miserable loss, Lu Xinglua will most likely lose his position as heir. What should we do now, Vice Guild Leader? White Feather asked worriedly. The guild leader sent us here to lay a solid foundation on the eastern continent so that we can dominate both continents in the future. Yet, Zero Wing is growing stronger while Miracle has half a foot in the grave. Don't worry. So long as we complete the task Lord Odin gave us, mythology will no longer face any hindrances on the eastern continent, Cold Shadow said with a faint smile. If we're lucky, we might even get to take over Zero Wing cities. After all, the eastern continent's various powers don't have much time left. Not much time left? White Feather was slightly surprised to hear Cold Shadow's words. However, she quickly recalled something and asked, has Lord Odin succeeded on his side already? MHM. The eastern continent will become the first battlefield. Cold Shadow nodded. When that time comes, the eastern continent's various powers can only watch as they gradually perish. Even Zero Wing with its mobile fortress won't be spared. Twin Towers Kingdom, Sky Spring City. Because of Zero Wing's landslide victory, the various superpowers that had forcibly occupied Sky Spring City fell into dismay. They never thought that all their efforts would end up being for naught. Unlike the superpowers members though, the members of Zero Wing, Unyielding Soul, and Crimson Emperor cheered and celebrated like maniacs. After all, the battle at the secret Covenant Tower had left their 3 guilds with complete ownership of the tower. Meanwhile, with the Tier 3 legacies the tower produced, the number of Tier 3 experts in their 3 guilds would skyrocket. Eventually, even super guilds would be no match for them. In fact, given enough time, their 3 guilds wouldn't even have to worry about NPC forces anymore. Elder Windshadow, why did you give the Tier 3 mana set equipment forging design to Zero Wing? That will just make Zero Wing even stronger and drastically affect our plans. The guild leader will definitely reprimand us once we return, asked Awakened Abyss, who had just been released from Sky Spring City's prison. He had been rendered speechless when he heard of Windshadow's actions. The Tier 3 mana set equipment could allow Tier 3 players to combat Tier 4 players. Any guild that could mass-produce this set would become a huge threat in the game. In fact, the set's forging design could even be considered more valuable than the mobile fortress. After all, the mobile fortress could secure only one location at a time. In comparison, having multiple Tier 4 combatants allowed a guild to secure multiple positions simultaneously. Abyss. Do you still not understand Elder Windshadow's personality? Longday suddenly asked, smiling. Do you really think he would let Zero Wing take advantage of him? What do you mean? Awakened Abyss asked in wonder. With how powerful the Tier 3 mana set equipment is, do you think Zero Wing can mass-produce it just by having its forging design? Chuckling, Longday explained, the minimum requirement to forge the set is an advanced master forger. In addition, the forger in question has to be at the advanced magician standard. Most importantly, the set needs incredibly rare materials to produce. Mana adamantite is hardly available even on our side, let alone here. And even if we assume Zero Wing can actually manufacture the set, there is still the Tier 4 strength requirement for equipping it. If Zero Wing can't fulfill even one of these points, that forging design will be no better than a piece of scrap paper. Upon listening to Long Day's explanation, Awakened Abyss immediately came to a realization. Smiling, he said, "In other words, what Zero Wing got is merely a piece of scrap paper?" "That's right. That black flame thinks that he made a huge profit, but that's far from being the case in reality," Long Day said, nodding. "However, we should leave this place quickly. The guild leader notified us that this continent is soon to be doomed. Once we finish our tasks here, we need to return as soon as possible. It would be bad if we got dragged into the mess." Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. I understand. "I'll go complete the tasks the guild leader gave me together with Jade Leaf," Awakened Abyss said, growing even more excited after hearing Long Day's subsequent words. Previously, he had still been entertaining thoughts of revenge on Zero Wing. However, they now seemed superfluous. While 100 Ghosts' members were preparing to leave Sky Spring City, inside the distant mobile fortress, Shifeng was shocked when he inspected the items Beast Emperor dropped. How did this thing end up in his hands? For a time, Shifeng couldn't help doubting his eyes. This was because both items Beast Emperor dropped were extraordinary. One of them was even something Shifeng had been searching for all this time. The Treasure of Fire, Purification Crown. Chapter 2830. Treasure of Fire. Shifeng couldn't help growing ecstatic as he looked at the Purification Crown. Finding the 7 treasures wasn't easy. Even though he could use the Golden Stigmata's detect skill to locate the 7 treasures, the skill had a limited range. Moreover, there were many ways one could block the effects of the skill. Take the Purification Crown in his hands, for example. Neither detect's active or passive detection effects were reacting to it at all. Hence, obtaining the Treasure of Fire from killing Beast Emperor came as an absolute surprise to Shifeng. He tapped his finger on the Purification Crown and called up its attribute panel, curious about the functions of this legendary Treasure of Fire. Purification Crown. Fragmented legendary rank item. A fragment of the Treasure of Fire. However, due to being sealed by the evil god, the fragment is incapable of exhibiting its true power. Skill 1. Seed of Flame. Can control and transform all flames into seeds of flame. Upon absorbing the seed of flame, the user will be able to manipulate the flame used to create the seed of flame. Can transform up to Tier 4 flames. Cooldown, 3 days. Skill 2. Purification Fire. Expend 300 fire-attributed magic crystals to produce a Purification Fire. The Purification Fire has a 20% chance of elevating a creature's life rating, and an 80% chance of thoroughly extinguishing a creature. Skill 3. Divine Purification. Expend God Crystals to purify the Purification Crown. A total of 20 God Crystals are required to purify the Purification Crown. Current number of absorbed God Crystals. 0. This item is corroded by the evil god's power. The Golden Stigmata can purify the evil energy corroding this item with the help of God Crystals. Cannot be destroyed. Has a chance of dropping on death. No wonder Beast Emperor was able to create so many mythic foe saints. He's been relying on this crown's ability. Realization dawned upon Shifeng when he finished reading the Purification Crown's attributes. He had to admit that every one of the 7 treasures was heaven-defying. The Purification Crown's Purification Fire skill was an absolute treasure when it came to elevating a creature's potential. Its only flaw was the 80% chance of causing the death of the target creature. Unless one had already exhausted their latent potential and were still seeking further improvement, making use of the Purification Fire should be their last resort. Only someone like Beast Emperor, who could mass-produce foe saint monsters easily, could use the Purification Crown without worries. So long as he managed to produce even one mythic-ranked foe saint monster, it wouldn't matter even if he expended hundreds of Grand Lord-ranked foe saint monsters in the process. After all, producing Grand Lord-ranked foe saint monsters was an incredibly simple process. The only real problem Beast Emperor had was finding the necessary fire-attributed magic crystals. If the Purification Fire skill required ordinary magic crystals instead, Beast Emperor would have most likely had tens or even hundreds of thousands of mythic-ranked foe saint monsters. This also explained why Beast Emperor had created an organization like Saint's Hand to support him. This Purification Fire really is a gem. Even though its success rate is only 20%, the possibility of elevating a creature's life rating makes the risk completely worthwhile. Shifeng sighed ruefully as he looked at the effects of the Purification Fire. The term creature did not refer to just faux saint monsters. It encompassed mounts and NPCs. In fact, the purification fire worked on players as well, only with significantly diminished effects. At most, it could raise a player's basic attributes and physique. It couldn't help players in getting promoted to Tier 4 or above. However, it was a different story for mounts and NPCs. For mounts and NPCs, improving their life ratings would significantly increase their chances of completing their promotions. At this time, though, Xueqi dared not experiment with the purification fire. At the very least, he wouldn't do so while the skill's success rate was only at 20%. After all, flying mounts and personal guards with high growth potential were not easy to find. If he got unlucky and ended up burning one out of existence, he would definitely die of regret. Subsequently, Xueqi set his sights on the purification crown's first skill. This seed of flame is good stuff. A powerful flame might be meaningless for ordinary players, but it was a divine tool for lifestyle players, particularly forgers and alchemists. Having a powerful flame would increase their production success rate considerably. This was especially true for mysterious flames. Even a Tier 1 mysterious flame would be of significant help to players. The only problem was that absorbing a mysterious flame was an excruciatingly painful process, something not just anyone could endure. Moreover, the stronger the mysterious flame, the more painful the absorption process would be. Previously, when Xueqi had bound the Tier 3 purple thunder flame, he had suffered immensely. Given the level of pain he experienced, he doubted that specialized lifestyle players could absorb a Tier 3 mysterious flame. After all, unlike himself, specialized lifestyle players tended to have less tolerance for pain. However, the Seed of Flame skill could dampen this excruciating absorption process by transforming flames into seeds of flame. Absorbing a seed of flame was significantly less painful than absorbing a flame directly. Players would have an easier time taking control over a flame. Of course, the best part about the Seed of Flame skill wasn't the fact that it could turn mysterious flames into seeds of flame. The skill's description clearly stated that it could transform all flames into seeds of flame. Flames didn't refer to just mysterious flames. There were other types of flames, such as the flames spat out by monsters and naturally occurring flames. In other words, the Seed of Flame skill was a heaven-defying skill capable of creating mysterious flames. All Xueqi needed to do was search for powerful flames and convert them into mysterious flames. However, as the purification crown was sealed, the most it could create were Tier 4 mysterious flames. Even so, this was already an incomparably precious ability. In God's domain, the rarity of Tier 3 mysterious flames was on par with that of fragmented legendary items. As for Tier 4 mysterious flames, they were basically the stuff of legends. Nevertheless, the purification crown was actually capable of creating Tier 4 mysterious flames. One could see just how heaven-defying this ability was. Of course, finding a flame that could be converted into a Tier 4 mysterious flame wouldn't be an easy task. After all, existences capable of producing such powerful flames weren't a dime a dozen. However, Xueqi would be satisfied so long as he could produce a couple of Tier 3 mysterious flames. For the candlelight trading firm's lifestyle players, being able to own a Tier 3 mysterious flame was something that only happened in their dreams. Xueqi took out the Tier 4 Hellfire, an excited expression appearing on his face. I initially planned to wait a little while longer before absorbing this, but I think I can give it a try now. He had been looking forward to absorbing the Hellfire for a long time now. However, he also understood that taking control of a Tier 4 mysterious flame would be unimaginably difficult. The process would have an extremely high demand on his concentration and pain tolerance. If he failed to absorb the Hellfire, he might even suffer a backlash. Hence, after obtaining the Hellfire, he did not dare casually absorb it. Moreover, after he had reached Tier 4, his soul had been strengthened significantly, which allowed him to resist the soul chain's threat for a much longer period. There had been no need for him to take such a risk. However, now that he had the purification crown, he wouldn't have to worry about the risks of absorbing the Hellfire. Subsequently, Xueqi used the purification crown on the Hellfire. The crown immediately released a dazzling radiance, and a golden mist enveloped the Hellfire. Upon sensing the threat from the purification crown, the Hellfire began resisting violently, its aura flaring until it rivaled that of superior mythic monsters. Read latest chapters at Xueqi World. However, the purification crown was one of the 7 treasures, an item carefully crafted by the goddess of space, an ancient god. Even if it was only a fragment of the original treasure of fire, its power wasn't something a Tier 4 mysterious flame could resist. 20 seconds later, the purification crown devoured the hellfire completely and transformed it into a dark gray seed of flame. In its current form, the hellfire's power was drastically suppressed. System: do you wish to absorb the seed of hellfire? Absorb. Upon seeing the system prompt, Xueqi chose to absorb the Tier 4 seed of flame without hesitation. Chapter 2831. Tier 4 Mysterious Flames Effects. As soon as Xueqi chose to absorb the seed of flame, the dark gray seed in his palm turned into streaks of light that merged with his body. Immediately afterward, Xueqi couldn't help gritting his teeth. It hurt so much. The pain he currently felt was far beyond what he had felt when he absorbed the Tier 3 purple thunder flame. It was like his blood was boiling and millions of ants were nibbling at his bones. If not for the recent breakthrough in his concentration, he would have most likely failed to endure this pain. The next moment, a loading bar showing his fusion progress with the seed of hellfire appeared before him. The loading bar filled up at a snail's pace, increasing by only 1% every dozen seconds or so. The pain is already so unbearable even with the help of a seed of flame. It's no wonder so few players managed to control a Tier 4 mysterious flame in the past. Realization dawned upon Xueqi as he looked at the slowly rising fusion bar. Any normal person would lose their mind if they had to endure this pain for even a second. Yet this pain was only the result of absorbing a Tier 4 seed of flame. He couldn't even begin to imagine how much pain directly absorbing a Tier 4 mysterious flame would involve. At this point, Xueqi suspected that the people who had successfully absorbed Tier 4 mysterious flames in his previous life had done so using special means like he did. After all, he had honed his pain tolerance for 10 years in the game. In this life, he had even developed his concentration beyond what he had in his previous life. Despite that, he still found absorbing even a weakened Tier 4 mysterious flame unbearable. What would it take to absorb an unaltered Tier 4 mysterious flame? 3%. 10%. 30%. Hold on. I must hold on. At this point, Xueqi was gritting his teeth, and his eyes were bloodshot. His complexion was also unprecedentedly pale. And worse, as the fusion progressed, its rate of increment gradually slowed down. Even after 2 whole hours had gone by, the fusion bar had reached only 73%. In addition, when the fusion crossed 60%, the seed of flame within him began radiating powerful mental assaults every second, battering his sea of consciousness. The subsequent mental assault that hit him at 74% nearly made him collapse. His consciousness began blurring, and he felt as if he was about to lose control of his body. This won't do. I need to think of a way to resist these mental assaults. Otherwise, I won't last until the end. While fusing with a mysterious flame, players had to remain conscious throughout the process. Otherwise, the fusion would be deemed a failure. Upon thinking up to this point, Xueqi began applying his mental defense technique against the seed of flame's mental assaults, gathering his focus into a single point and stealing his mind. While this technique worked wonders initially, after the fusion progress reached 80%, the seed of flame seemingly noticed his trick. Immediately afterward, the seed began releasing mental assaults at a much higher rate, going from once per second to twice per second, then even increasing to 3, 4, 5 times per second. The frequency of the mental assaults continuously escalated, the seed of flame adamant in breaking Xueqi's mind. It can even play such a move? Xueqi was stupefied by this situation. Faced with these high-frequency mental assaults, Xueqi dared not relax for even a moment. However, maintaining his mental defense technique also made him feel indescribably uncomfortable. This technique was akin to a person flexing their muscles. While one could harden one's muscles by flexing them, it would be exhausting to keep one's muscles flexed for long periods. Likewise, Xueqi couldn't keep his focus condensed for long periods. Moreover, as his mental defense technique was much more complex than the flexing one's muscles, the time he could maintain it was even shorter. 83%. 87%. 92%. The more frequent the mental assaults were, the less time he had to breathe. At some point, his mind even began feeling suffocated. Is it still not done? Looking at the fusion bar, Xueqi felt as if he was on the brink of collapse. At this time, his body pains already felt insignificant compared to the mental suffocation. In fact, His body was already ignoring the burning pain the seed of flame inflicted. Now, the only thing his mind could think of was finding an opportunity to catch a breath. Just when Xueqi felt as if he would die from suffocation, the system's indifferent voice entered his ears. System. The Hellfire's fusion is complete. The Hellfire is now bound as player Yifeng's personal property. System. Congratulations. You have been tempered by the Hellfire. All basic attributes increased by 300 points. All basic attributes increased by 10%. Physique improved by 20%. Reaction speed improved by 20%. Mental control improved by 40%. Fire and ice resistances plus 150. And control over fire-type mana improved by 20%. Xueqi inhaled deeply upon hearing the system notification. When air filled his lungs again, he felt revived. After relaxing his mind, he could feel the Hellfire's energy spreading throughout his body. His originally depleted concentration also began recovering crazily. So, this is the power of a Tier 4 mysterious flame? At this moment, Xueqi felt reborn. His basic attributes might not have increased by much after absorbing the Hellfire, but his acuity of the world of God's domain had undergone a drastic change. He felt as if he had stepped into a whole new world. His concentration standard, in particular, had gone from the Tier 4 intermediate standard to the Tier 4 peak standard. Aside from the improvements to his mind and body, the Hellfire's active power was similarly astonishing. Hellfire, Tier 4 Mysterious Flame, when activated, improves destructive power by 100% and effects of fire-type skills and spells by 100%, grants attacks a 150% mental assault modifier, and increases the success rate of forging, alchemy, and cooking by 25%. Upon reading the Tier 4 Hellfire's active effects, Xueqi finally understood why Tier 4 Mysterious Flames were regarded as legends in God's domain. The Tier 4 Hellfire was a heaven-defying tool for both combat and lifestyle players. The Hellfire's ability to add mental assaults to attacks was especially amazing. Far more amazing than purely physical or magical attacks. After all, there was no clear attribute for mental assaults in God's domain. Likewise, there were no in-game methods for resisting mental assaults. Players could only rely on their own minds to withstand such assaults. Players lacking in mental fortitude could lose control over their bodies after suffering just one strike. And even if they didn't, they would still feel disoriented and their bodies uncomfortable. Now that Xueqi had the Hellfire in his possession, he dared to confront even superior mythic monsters of the same level directly. However, rather than the combat bonuses the Hellfire provided, what Xueqi paid more attention to were its supportive effects. The Hellfire's 25% increase to production success rate was something even Grandmaster Forgers would desire greatly. The higher the quality of an item, the lower its production success rate. Normally, the theoretical production success rate provided by the system was the highest success rate achievable. However, even after reaching the Grandmaster standard, players still wouldn't be capable of reaching this upper limit. And this was after high-quality tools were included in the equation. Not to mention, tools that increased production success rates were less effective the higher the quality of the item being produced was. However, mysterious flames were an exception. Their effects remained the same regardless of the quality of the item being produced. With the Tier 4 Hellfire, I can probably produce epic weapons at a 30% success rate now. Xueqi felt indescribably excited. When he obtained the Tier 3 Mana Set Equipment Forging design, he had decided to set it aside temporarily. One of the reasons for doing so was his disinclination to waste precious materials. After all, mana adamantite was incredibly precious. In the modern God's domain, its rarity almost rivaled that of 7 luminaries crystals. Secondly, he wished to use mana iron ore as a replacement. However, he needed mana iron ingots of considerably high purity to accomplish this. Although the Tier 3 Purple Thunderflame possessed excellent smelting capabilities, it still couldn't smelt mana iron ore into special ranked mana iron ingots, producing only advanced mana iron ingots at best. Only a Tier 4 Mysterious Flame could accomplish such a feat. Of course, using special mana iron ingots to produce the Tier 3 Mana Set equipment would degrade the set slightly. However, the end result would still let Tier 3 players hold their ground against mythic monsters. As Xueqi was contemplating how to mass-produce the Tier 3 Mana Set equipment, he suddenly received a call from Fire Dance. After accepting the call request, Xueqi asked, "Did something happen over at Sky Spring City?" News of the battle at the Secret Covenant Tower had shaken the entire God's domain. At this point, it was no exaggeration to say that no player forces in the Twin Towers Kingdom would dare go against Zero Wing. Logically, there shouldn't be any problems there. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Hey no. It's just that there are too many people applying to join Zero Wing right now, Fire Dance replied with a bitter smile. We gained over 500,000 new members after just half a day, including over 10,000 Tier 3 players. All of the top-tier weapons and equipment we got from the battle in Sky Spring City before have already been exchanged. If we don't replenish the warehouse, we won't be able to expand our forces further even if we want to. I understand. Shifeng smiled at Fire Dance's words and said, I still have some epic items as well as a bunch of level 130+ weapons and equipment. They should be enough to tide us over for now. I'll figure out a follow-up solution later. Fire Dance simply responded with a helpless nod. With a number of guild members waiting to exchange for weapons and equipment, a few hundred pieces of level 130+ weapons and equipment wouldn't make much of a difference. They would most likely be gone in half an hour. However, as she was pondering how the guild could acquire more weapons and equipment, a massive batch of weapons and equipment suddenly appeared in Zero Wing's guild warehouse. These weapons and equipment were none other than the epic weapons and equipment Shifeng had purchased in the ancient god's domain. There were also the various weapons and equipment he got from grinding at the anti-magic volcano, which numbered over 6,000, with even the most inferior piece being level 130 bronze equipment. This would be of great help not only when practicing their skills and spells but also for understanding the operating principles of mana. Since more and more players were reaching Tier 4 in God's domain, information about the Tier 4 promotion quest had also leaked to the public. According to the leaks, a part of the quest required players to learn a Tier 4 skill or spell within a limited period. Thus, to complete this challenge, players needed to have a considerable understanding of and control over mana. Otherwise, even if one managed to find a Tier 4 legacy land, one still wouldn't reach Tier 4. While Crimson Wolf's members were conversing, a commotion suddenly entered their ears, catching their attention. I remember that's where the guild warehouse is, the summoner youth said as he looked in the direction of the commotion curiously. Did Zero Wing's warehouse go empty? No, those people appear excited, the crimson-haired woman said, shaking her head. However, as soon as Crimson Wolf's commander finished speaking, a few excited voices reached them. Crap! Isn't the guild being too generous? They're actually letting us exchange for level 150 epic weapons and equipment. I heard that the other superpowers have only several dozen level 120 epic weapons and equipment in their guild warehouses, yet there are over 100 level 150 epic weapons and equipment here. Did the guild executives make a mistake? That's very possible. Even so, our guild is simply amazing. Other guilds barely have any level 130 equipment in their warehouses, yet we have over 6,000. I even saw quite a few level 140 secret silver weapons and equipment in the warehouse. With this, we won't have to worry about finding replacement gear after reaching level 130. The veteran members and new members of Zero Wing standing in front of the guild warehouse's exchange counters all had excited looks on their faces. For most players in God's domain, nothing was more important than weapons and equipment, especially top-tier weapons and equipment. Those were items countless players dreamed of obtaining. At this time, Zero Wing had actually put over 100 level 150 epic weapons and equipment up for exchange. No other superpower had ever shown such generosity before. In any other guild, a level 150 epic weapon or equipment would have been immediately monopolized by the guild executives. Normal members of the guild would never have a chance with these items. Of course, exchanging for Zero Wing's level 150 epic weapons and equipment wasn't easy, either. Firstly, one had to be an elite member or above. Secondly, one needed an astronomical number of guild contribution points. This was because even the cheapest piece of level 150 epic equipment cost 3 million GCPs. According to Zero Wing's internal market, 1 GCP was worth 20 copper coins. Thus, 3 million GCPs would be worth 6,000 gold coins. Although 6,000 gold was an astronomical price even for level 150 epic equipment, it was nigh impossible to find level 150 epic equipment on the market right now. Guild executives were monopolizing every piece of level 150 epic equipment available. Nevertheless, Zero Wing was allowing even its elite members to exchange for these items. This was undoubtedly a great benefit. Boss, I take back what I just said. Zero Wing's foundation is insane. If we can exchange for a full set of these epic weapons and equipment, we'll be unstoppable. Crimson Wolf Summoner Youth said. When he saw the large number of level 150 epic weapons and equipment in the guild warehouse, he was similarly astonished. Even the eyes of Crimson Wolf's red-haired commander blazed with passion as she looked at the exchange list before her. Fire! Notify everyone in the team immediately. Have everyone start accumulating as many GCPs as possible. We need to secure a few of these epic items before the other adventurer teams clear them out. The red-haired woman said to the Summoner Youth. Okay. I'll notify them right away. The urgency of the situation spurred the Summoner Youth to contact the other Crimson Wolf members who had joined Zero Wing as fast as possible. For a time, many of the new members bustled about, every one of these Tier 3 experts adamant in getting a share of those level 150 epic weapons and equipment. Some of the adventurer teams that joined Zero Wing recently even exchanged their level 110 to level 120 top-tier equipment for GCPs. Since the guild purchased weapons and equipment at 10% to 15% below market value, nobody would normally be willing to trade in their old weapons and equipment for GCPs. They would rather slowly accumulate GCPs through guild quests. However, the current situation was different. There were only so many level 150 epic weapons and equipment available for exchange. If they did not secure these items as soon as possible, other people would do so. Meanwhile, trading in weapons and equipment was undoubtedly the quickest way to accumulate several million GCPs. As a result, in just half an hour after Zero Wing's warehouse was updated, it had gained an additional 2,000 level 120 top-tier equipment and 7,000 level 110 top-tier equipment. The guild's equipment crisis got resolved in the blink of an eye. Guild leader, this move of yours worked wonders. With all these adventurer teams contributing their weapons and equipment to us, we should be able to last for a few more days, Firedance said joyfully. It's still too soon to celebrate. Looking at Firedance's excited expression, Shifeng smiled and said, Notify everyone in the guild that the guild will no longer restrict their activity to just the guild cities and secret covenant towers vicinities. Everyone can move freely now. We're lifting the restriction now? Firedance was surprised by Shifeng's words. Currently, NPC forces were running rampant in the fields, robbing and attacking even the superpowers. Previously, to avoid these predicaments, Zero Wing had chosen to restrict its members' movement to just the guild cities and secret covenant towers vicinities. Removing this restriction now would undoubtedly increase the guild's expenditure. Nodding, Shifeng said, we have fallen behind the other superpowers in raiding dungeons and acquiring resources. Letting this situation continue will only be detrimental to the guild. Now that the various superpowers no longer dare have designs on the secret covenant tower, there's naturally no need for us to continue hiding. I understand. I'll make the necessary preparations right away, Firedance said. After giving the matter some thought, she found Shifeng's words reasonable. Now that Zero Wing's existence was unshakable, they indeed didn't have to lie low anymore. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU Meanwhile, as Firedance was drafting this announcement, Shifeng finished installing the sixth mirror of the World Mirror into the distant Zero Wing City's City Lord's mansion. System. Do you wish to bind the World Mirror with Zero Wing City? Bind. Shifeng answered without hesitation. System. World Mirror bound successfully. System. Congratulations. Zero Wing City has reached the requirement to become a basic main city. Do you wish to upgrade it? Chapter 2833 Promotion to Main City Chapter 2833 Promotion to Main City. Seeing the system prompt, Shifeng chose to upgrade Zero Wing City without hesitation. System. Main City upgrade will cost 500,000 gold coins and 200,000 magic crystals. Do you wish to proceed? Proceed. Shifeng was not at all surprised by the upgrade cost. He had long since prepared the necessary funds. The next moment, 500,000 gold coins and 200,000 magic crystals disappeared from his bag. He then received another system notification. System. Payment completed. All players within Zero Wing City will be teleported out of the city in 3 minutes. Upgrade is estimated to take 2 hours. Zero Wing City Region System Announcement. Zero Wing City will commence upgrading into a basic main city. All players within Zero Wing City will be teleported out of the city in 3 minutes. Players within the city are advised to make the necessary preparations. After the regional announcement's appearance, the several 100,000 players that populated Zero Wing City promptly broke out in doubt and exclamations. What's going on? Zero Wing City's getting upgraded into a main city? Zero Wing City isn't even an advanced city yet. How can it get promoted into a main city? What did Zero Wing do? The independent players and guild players operating in Zero Wing City were thunderstruck by this unexpected piece of news. This was especially true for the various guild players. They felt as if the system was playing a bad joke on them. Ordinary players might not understand the significance of a main city, but guild players like themselves knew just how difficult it was to raise a guild city's status to main city. In fact, even upgrading a guild city into an intermediate city was already incredibly difficult for guilds at this stage of the game. After all, guilds needed to ensure the constant development of their guild city's popularity and security standards, and fulfilling these requirements required a lot of manpower and resources. However, after Zero Wing had prohibited NPCs from entering its guild cities and increased the entrance fees the cities charged, Zero Wing City's prosperity and popularity had plummeted. At this point, let alone getting promoted into a main city, even getting promoted to an intermediate city should be impossible. Yet, the system was now telling them that Zero Wing City was already getting upgraded into a main city. This defied credence. However, no matter how much the players inside Zero Wing City refused to believe the system announcement, the system's timer continued counting down the seconds. Eventually, after 3 whole minutes elapsed, every player in the city was teleported out of the city. Only after finding themselves standing outside the city walls did everyone understand that Zero Wing City's promotion was real. This astonishing piece of news quickly reached the ears of Star Moon Kingdom's various powers, and all of these powers were inevitably shocked. In an era where most superpowers did not even possess a single intermediate guild city, Zero Wing had already secured itself a main guild city. This situation was simply unbelievable. When Liang Jing, who was working in Silverwing City, heard about Zero Wing City's promotion, she hurriedly contacted Xueqi and asked, "Guild leader, what did you do? How did Zero Wing City get promoted into a main city?" Currently, even the popular Silverwing City was still a long ways from becoming an advanced city. She found it simply incredible that Zero Wing City, which was drastically inferior in terms of popularity, could become a main city ahead of Silverwing City. However, while Liang Jing was confused by this unexpected development, she couldn't help growing excited over it as well. After all, Zero Wing's present situation wasn't as rosy as everyone thought. Although the various superpowers had given up on cornering Zero Wing after the battle at the Secret Covenant Tower, they continued to suppress Zero Wing economically. Although Zero Wing indeed possessed combat power surpassing even that of the 5 great superguilds, it was still limited to passive self-defense. The guild couldn't actively wage war against the various superpowers. Not to mention, due to the war of attrition with the various superpowers, Zero Wing was now severely lacking in weapons and equipment. To make matters worse, the income Zero Wing generated from its guild cities continued to decline. After the major system update, maintenance costs for NPCs had increased. Moreover, guilds were now required to pay upkeep for buildings and magic arrays. And although there was the teleportation hall in Silverwing City, most adventurer teams dared not enter Silverwing City at all, due to the pressure from the various superpowers. At this point, if not for the huge sum of funds from Crimson Emperor and Unyielding Soul, Zero Wing would have long since gone bankrupt and crumbled. Gaining a main city now would undoubtedly solve Zero Wing's financial problems. This was because a main guild city was much more amazing than an ordinary guild city. First and foremost, a main city was much larger than an ordinary guild city. Even a basic main city could easily accommodate more than 10 million inhabitants. Secondly, there were some high-end buildings that could be constructed only in main cities. Thirdly, a main city could recruit up to 30,000 NPC soldiers. With so many NPC soldiers, the main city's security system would be much less vulnerable than ordinary guild cities. Lastly, a main city had the authority to govern a region. With this authority, a city could dispatch up to 20,000 of its soldiers to fight outside the city. In other words, the entire map the city was located in would be under the city's control. If Zero Wing City really did become a main city, the guild could afford to open the city to NPCs, and none of the various NPC forces would dare make trouble in the city. "It's a secret," Xueqi replied, chuckling. "However, you should get ready on your side. Once Zero Wing City's upgrade is complete, I plan to open the city to the public and construct a teleportation hall in the city that will connect it with Sky Spring City. At that time, I'll need you to manage Zero Wing City. As for Silverwing City's management, leave that to Melancholic. You're having me manage Zero Wing City? Liang Jing was confused. But isn't Melancholic working in White River City? Wouldn't it be more convenient to have her manage Zero Wing City? Shaking his head, Shifeng said no. After Zero Wing City's upgrade, I plan to transfer it to a neutral map far away from Star Moon Kingdom. Melancholic already has her hands full with Candlelight's matters in Star Moon Kingdom. The most she can do is manage Silverwing City. It would be impossible for her to manage Zero Wing City. Not only did Melancholic Smile have to manage the Candlelight trading firm, but as an advanced Master Forger, she also had to work on getting promoted to Grandmaster Forger. If she had to manage a main city on top of that, she wouldn't even have time to sleep. After all, a main city had many more things that required management than an ordinary guild city. Just the recruitment and management of the main city's 30,000 NPC soldiers would be more than enough to keep a person occupied. Zero Wing City's manager would have to assign daily tasks to these soldiers as well as constantly revise the weapons and equipment configuration of these soldiers, allocating better gear and positions to soldiers who performed well, and so on. From his experience as a guild leader in his previous life, Shifeng understood just how tedious it was to manage a main guild city. In the past, it was precisely because he had to devote a significant portion of his time to handling guild affairs that he failed to reach Tier 4. Hence, in this life, he had pushed all these tasks to other people while he focused on improving himself. Otherwise, he wouldn't have achieved his current combat power. You're also going to move the city? Liang Jing's breathing quickened when she heard Shifeng's words. Just the fact that Zero Wing City was getting promoted into a main city was already plenty shocking. If Shifeng could also move the city to a neutral map, Zero Wing would be rich. So I need you to begin the necessary preparations now. You'll probably be very busy afterward, Shifeng said, nodding. Simultaneously, a hint of anticipation appeared in his eyes. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. EU currently, of Zero Wing's 3 guild cities, Stone Forest City in the Dark Knight Empire and Silverwing City in the Orc Empire held strategic locations. In the case of Stone Forest City, it was necessary to stop the Dark World's invasion. As for Silverwing City, it served as a barrier to the Faux Saint Army's expansion. Hence, both cities should not be moved unless absolutely necessary. This left Zero Wing City as the only option to use as a foothold in high-level neutral maps. After all, unlike Stone Forest City and Silverwing City, Zero Wing City didn't counter any player forces. Moreover, Zero Wing City's position in Star Moon Kingdom no longer brought much value to the guild. 2 hours went by quickly, and an entirely new Zero Wing City came into view. Immediately afterward, Shifeng arrived in the City Lord's Mansion's core control room and injected 5,000 mana stones into the world mirror. He then transferred Zero Wing City to a level 140 neutral map, leaving the excited crowd outside the city dumbfounded. Chapter 2834. New Zero Wing City. The city disappeared? What's going on? Wasn't Zero Wing supposed to get promoted into a main city? The players gathered at the Witch's Hill were inevitably confused when they saw Zero Wing City disappear all of a sudden. It just vanished into thin air. Did Zero Wing transfer the city elsewhere? That shouldn't be possible, right? This is a main city we're talking about. I looked into it before. If a main city will relocate within the borders of a country, transferring it requires not only an advanced city transfer order but also the permission of the host country. This is because a main city is deeply involved in the governance of the region it is in. A heated debate promptly arose over Zero Wing City's disappearance. Star Moon Kingdom's various powers, in particular, were nervous. After all, Zero Wing would automatically gain the ruling rights of whichever location Zero Wing City was transferred to. If this location happened to fall within their territory, they would have to say goodbye to their territory. Meanwhile, as Star Moon Kingdom's various players and powers were discussing this matter. Level 140 neutral map, Arctic Canyon. A majestic and wealthy city suddenly appeared on a cliff near the coast of this map, instantly occupying nearly half of the 20,000-yard coastline. The city faced a boundless, snowy forest and had its back to the frozen sea. It's finally my turn to control this region in this life. Xueqi couldn't help being a little excited as he looked at the ocean view outside the city. The Arctic Canyon was a level 140 to level 160 neutral map, one of the few neutral maps on the main continent connected to the sea. The Sea of Death was near the Arctic Canyon, and by crossing the Sea of Death, one could reach the western continent. The Arctic Canyon was one of the eastern continent's closest shores to the western continent. In addition, the Arctic Canyon also lay close to the top of the world. This was a new continent that countless experts in God's domain sought to conquer. Not only was the Arctic Canyon one of the few maps that led to the top of the world, but it was also the easiest entry point to this continent, which was 100,000 meters above sea level. In the past, every inch of land in the Arctic Canyon was worth its weight in gold. It was a place where the various superpowers sought to establish a foothold, no matter the cost. However, as most of the Arctic Canyon's terrain was uneven, the map could house only a limited number of guild cities, especially guild cities at the main city standard. The Arctic Canyon could house 4 main cities and 22 ordinary guild cities at most. Guild towns couldn't survive in this place at all. Even if the town received protection from a Tier 5 player, the blizzards here would still reduce it to a pile of ruins in an instant. For a shelter to survive here, it would need to be at the advanced city standard at a minimum. With such limited space, first-rate guilds and weaker would be dreaming if they thought they could establish a foothold here. In fact, most superpowers failed to do so in Xueqi's previous life. The 4 plots of land that could house main cities, in particular, were so heavily contested that even the 5 great superguilds met with failure. In the end, the 5 great superguilds had to share 2 of these lands, while the various superpowers shared the remaining 2. Yet, Xueqi had now claimed the Arctic Canyon's best plot of land for himself. How could he not be excited by this situation? After all, any player that had reached level 150, Tier 4 would have to visit the top of the world. This was because this new continent held plenty of ancient treasures and legacies, all of which were crucial for these players to further improve themselves. Back then, the top of the world was such a tempting place that even Tier 3 players had come to challenge it. Unfortunately, due to the top of the world being too distant from Star Moon Kingdom, it had been completely outside Shadow's sphere of development. Hence, Xueqi never actually set foot into the top of the world in the past. He had only ever heard stories about it. The Arctic Canyon, though, was a place he had visited in his previous life. This was because the Arctic Canyon served as a trade hub for the 2 main continents. Over 20% of the ships traveling between the 2 continents would stop at the Arctic Canyon. After all, not everyone had a flying mount, and neither was everyone capable of reaching Tier 4. The intercontinental magic arrays available had also been monopolized by the various superpowers. As a result, most trades conducted between the 2 continents were still seaborne. With this place serving as Zero Wing's base, the guild would no longer have to worry about matters relating to funds, resources, and leveling up. Even the various superpowers working together wouldn't be able to suppress Zero Wing. Next up is to set up the 12-array magic world. Shifting his gaze to the control room's core magic array, Xueqi took out various materials he had prepared beforehand. Apart from some basic materials, the 12-array magic world also required 300,000 magic crystals, 107 luminaries crystals, and 200 magic elven stones to set up. Once operational, the magic array would need 800 mana stones every day to maintain it. Even with the Philosopher's Stone's alchemical synthesis, it would still cost 40,000 magic crystals daily. Just its maintenance could already bankrupt the average first-rate guild. An hour later, Xueqi finished integrating the 12-array magic world with Zero Wing's core magic array. Once he injected the necessary mana stones into the magic array, he could activate it whenever he wanted. However, Xueqi did not rush to activate the 12-array magic world. At this point, Xueqi could sense that his perception of mana had improved by at least 150% compared to before. The affinity with and perception of mana he experienced here practically rivaled what he experienced in the NPC city he visited in the ancient god's domain. Guild leader, how are things coming along on your side? At this time, Liang Jing suddenly contacted Xueqi. I'm already done selecting the first batch of players to send to Zero Wing City. These players are completely loyal to us and have fought dozens of small and large battles for us. Every one of them has reached Tier 3 and possesses great potential. I believe they can adequately handle Zero Wing City security and suppress any NPC troublemakers in the city. I'm done here too. Chuckling, Xueqi added, however, I think it's best if you come here in person first before deciding on the exact arrangements. I've already granted you access to the city. You can teleport here through a residence now. Chapter 2835. News of Zero Wing City Sky Spring City, Zero Wing's residence. At this time, more than 10,000 Tier 3 experts had gathered in Zero Wing's residence in Sky Spring City. Such a force was already enough to overwhelm even first-rate guilds. Moreover, this number continued to increase as time passed. This development inevitably shocked the various powers operating within Sky Spring City. What's going on with Zero Wing? Why is it gathering so many of its Tier 3 members in its residence? Is Zero Wing planning some kind of big operation? That might be possible. After the battle at the Secret Covenant Tower, Saint's Hand declared an all-out war on Zero Wing. Meanwhile, since the popular Orc Empire is Saint's Hand's home ground, other guilds have stopped visiting Silverwing City lest they offend Saint's Hand and get targeted by those faux Saint monsters. So there's a good chance that Zero Wing is gathering its forces for a counterattack. The various powers secretly discussed Zero Wing's purpose in gathering its forces. Many of them guessed that Zero Wing wanted to make use of its current advantage to launch a big operation. After all, now that Zero Wing had the Secret Covenant Tower as its foundation, nobody was capable of threatening the guild's existence. With Zero Wing's ability to produce a large number of Tier 3 players continuously, it wouldn't necessarily be impossible for the guild to confront Saint's Hand in the Orc Empire. At this time, the people in the outside world weren't the only ones confused by Zero Wing's sudden decision to gather its Tier 3 members. Even the players in Zero Wing's residence were confused by this situation. Fire! Have you found out what is going on? Solitary Sword, the red-haired commander of the Crimson Wolf Adventurer team, asked curiously as she looked at the Tier 3 summoner youth hurrying toward her. It would be hard not to notice the sudden appearance of so many Tier 3 experts in the residence. This was especially true now that so many top-tier epic weapons and equipment had appeared in Zero Wing's warehouse. In less than a day, 8 of the 100-plus epic weapons and equipment in the guild warehouse had already been claimed. And this was only the beginning. As more time passed, the various adventurer teams that had recently joined Zero Wing would accumulate more and more GCPs. Then, more and more of these epic items would get taken away. Although she had already managed to exchange for an epic headgear for swordsman, she still had her eyes on an epic weapon. So long as she could obtain this weapon, her combat power would definitely undergo a qualitative transformation. If all of these many Tier 3 experts, who had suddenly appeared in the residence, were aiming at the epic weapons and equipment, the competition would intensify sharply. Boss, I asked around. I even asked some of the adventurer teams I have friendly relations with. However, none of them know what's going on. Even the guild's core members have no clue about this situation, the summoner youth replied, shaking his head. However, I did find out why so many Tier 3 members have gathered in Sky Spring City. It seems there's an emergency summons from the guild leader's assistant. Also, the ones summoned are all veteran members of the guild. The guild specifically summoned these core members? Solitary Sword frowned at this information. If that's the case, the guild is most likely undertaking a large-scale operation. Guilds would generally award a generous amount of contribution points to members who participated in their large-scale operations. Now that Zero Wing was gathering its veteran Tier 3 members for a large-scale operation, the competition for the epic weapons and equipment would undoubtedly intensify. While Solitary Sword worried over this situation, a large group of players suddenly entered the guild residence. Not only did none of these people wear Zero Wing's emblem, but they all exuded astonishingly powerful auras. The man leading the group even had an oppressive aura that verged on the aura of Tier 4 players. Why is Heaven's Blade's vice commander here? I heard rumors stating that Heaven's Blade became Zero Wing's subsidiary after the incident on Dragonheart Island. It seems these rumors were actually true. The arrival of Heaven's Blade's Tier 3 experts in Zero Wing's residence stunned the players idling around outside the residence. The various guild players were especially shocked. Although Heaven's Blade was only an adventurer team, it possessed incredible fame. The adventurer team even had 3 domain realm experts. Moreover, many superpowers in God's domain had tried recruiting Heaven's Blade, but the adventurer team had refused all the invitations it received. Yet, Heaven's Blade now appeared in Zero Wing's residence. Given the rumors surrounding the two organizations, Heaven's Blade's arrival was basically a declaration that the adventurer team now belonged to Zero Wing. This was absolutely bad news for the various guilds. Thus far, Zero Wing could only remain on the defensive due to a lack of manpower. However, things would definitely change now that Heaven's Blade had come under Zero Wing. Vice Commander, Zero Wing really is amazing. It already has so many Tier 3 experts now. At this rate, it won't be long before Zero Wing overtakes the various superpowers in this regard, Cleansing Flame said, sighing ruefully as she took in her surroundings. She had heard something of the battle that had taken place at the secret Covenant Tower. At one point in the past, Heaven's Blade had been in existence that could contend against the various superpowers. At that time, the adventurer team had more experts than Zero Wing. Now, Zero Wing had become a true behemoth. Despite not being an actual superpower, it had already surpassed the various superpowers. Chuckling at Cleansing Flame's words, Divine Shadow said, "All right, let's hurry up. We shouldn't make guild leader Black Flame wait for too long." Nodding, Cleansing Flame quickly followed Divine Shadow to the Residence's guild hall. Personally, she was very curious about why Xueqi had suddenly called for Heaven's Blade's top combatants this time. Logically, with the number of Tier 3 experts Zero Wing had assembled in Sky Spring City, it shouldn't lack manpower here. In fact, the guild should be sending more manpower to Dragonheart Island instead. After all, the exploration of the World Tower's 4th underground floor wasn't an easy task. Shortly afterward, Divine Shadow and Cleansing Flame reached the top-floor meeting room of Zero Wing's residence. At this time, the executives of Zero Wing and the Azura Adventurer team had long been waiting here. The arrival of Heaven's Blade's members confused these executives. However, as Zero Wing's and Azura's executives wondered why Xueqi had invited Heaven's Blade's members, Xueqi and Liang Jing also entered the room. After taking his seat, Xueqi scanned the crowd before him and said, "Sorry for the long wait." At Xueqi's words, everyone in the room fell silent and looked at Xueqi with curious eyes. Liang Jing. Seeing everyone's confusion, Xueqi chuckled and said, "Brief everyone about the specifics of the situation." In response, Liang Jing stepped up to the table and opened the booklet she held. After taking a deep breath, she said, "Everyone, I believe you should know by now that Zero Wing City has been upgraded into a main city. The reason we have gathered you here today is to discuss Zero Wing City's future development." Zero Wing City's future development? Divine Shadow found Liang Jing's explanation strange. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. If today's meeting was about Zero Wing City's future development, there should be no reason for the guild to invite Heaven's Blade to attend. After all, this was Zero Wing's internal matter. It should have nothing to do with an affiliated adventurer team. That's right. Nodding, Liang Jing said, "Before this, everyone has been wondering where Zero Wing City went. Now, I can tell everyone that Zero Wing City is currently located in the Arctic Canyon, a level 140 neutral map." After saying so, Liang Jing shared the specifics regarding the Arctic Canyon through the conference table's virtual interface. These are the Arctic Canyon's details. Feel free to study them. At Liang Jing's words, everyone promptly opened the file they received and began reading up on Arctic Canyon. After a short silence, gasps sounded in the room one after another. In that case, we might as well give access to all guild members. Of course, we will also have to charge an adequate fee since running a closed city is a losing business, Flying Shadow suggested. That won't do. Shaking his head, Blackie said, "We have a lot of people joining Zero Wing recently. If the various powers successfully sneak some of their members into our guild, we'll suffer a huge loss." Everyone in the room nodded in agreement with Blackie. Currently, many guilds had already begun sneaking their members into Zero Wing just because of the benefits offered by the mobile fortress and the secret Covenant Tower. To counter this problem, Fire Dance had deliberately made core membership a requirement for entering the mobile fortress. To become a core member of Zero Wing, one would have to contribute a lot to the guild. It would take a new member 1 or 2 months to accumulate sufficient contributions. Only after this new regulation appeared did the various guilds dismiss their plans. However, this new regulation failed to deter the adventurer teams. Adventurer teams still joined Zero Wing one after another, all of them with the purpose of utilizing the mobile fortress's training environment. They had joined the guild solely to exploit the guild for their own benefit. Once these adventurer teams achieved their goals, there was a high chance they would just pack up and leave. Of course, Zero Wing didn't mind that much. After all, these adventurer teams would have to make the corresponding contributions to obtain the benefits they sought. At this time, Yulan suggested, "How about we learn from the Mobile Fortress's example and let only core members enter? I'm afraid we won't have enough numbers if that's the case." Shaking her head, Liang Jing explained, "Based on our current estimates, we need at least 80,000 people to keep Zero Wing City running normally. Even then, we'd have to charge 1 magic crystal per person. It cost 40,000 magic crystals just to keep the 12-array magic world running. After factoring in the magic crystals needed to keep the city's various other magic arrays and constructions operating, the city would need to make at least 80,000 magic crystals per day to avoid falling into the red. Moreover, this still didn't include the cost of the 30,000 Tier 3 NPC soldiers the guild planned to recruit. That much? Yulan was slightly surprised. A daily operational cost of 80,000 magic crystals was something even the various superpowers would find hard to stomach. Especially since this was only one city they were talking about. That's why Liang Jing and I plan to open Zero Wing City to the elite members of Zero Wing and Zero Wing's affiliated powers as well. However, everyone will have to cover the teleportation fees themselves. Elite members will also have to pay 3 magic crystals to enter the city, while core members will have to pay 2 magic crystals, Xueqi said. Apart from the core members we gathered this time, everyone else will be free to choose whether they want to enter the city or not. 3 magic crystals per person? This entrance fee rendered everyone present speechless. It was undoubtedly the highest ever charged in God's Domain's history. If the city were open to the public, there might still be many people entering the city despite the high cost. However, if access was limited to guild members, the number of players entering the city would be minimal. After all, players had far too few sources of magic crystals. For the average player, they could obtain magic crystals only by harvesting ores, doing quests, opening treasure chests, and raiding large-scale team dungeons. It was almost impossible for them to obtain magic crystals through standard grinding. If a player was merely seeking to level up, they would be much better off heading to the Secret Covenant Tower instead of the Arctic Canyon. As for those trying to find Tier 4 legacy lands, to put it bluntly, how many players in Zero Wing were actually confident of completing their Tier 4 promotion quests? Tier 4 legacy lands were necessary for the guild, not for the guild's members. If the average guild member found a Tier 4 legacy land, they would, at best, receive a reward from the guild. However, if obtaining this reward meant having to explore a level 140 neutral map and pay an entrance fee of 3 magic crystals, very few people would accept such a business proposition. After listening to Xueqi's words, Cleansing Flame turned to Divine Shadow and asked quietly, "Vice Commander, should the 2 of us head to Zero Wing City and take a look first? Although we brought only core members with us this time, it would still be a considerable cost if all 2,000 of them enter the city." It would be a lie to say that they weren't tempted by the prospect of finding Tier 4 legacy lands. However, Heaven's Blade had already suffered a major loss due to its previous disbandment. Apart from some fixed assets, Heaven's Blade didn't have much resources left, and just maintaining the adventurer team's daily operation was a struggle. If they splurged their precious magic crystals now, they would be putting the cart before the horse. After all, magic crystals were different from ancient coins and standard coins. While purchasing magic crystals in small quantities was possible, purchasing them in bulk was absolutely impossible. At this stage of the game, due to the high demand for magic crystals, even the 5 great super guilds had begun publicly purchasing magic crystals. Yet, they only managed to purchase the crystals in small quantities from independent players seeking to earn credits. None of the various guilds or adventurer teams members would be dumb enough to trade magic crystals for credits. "MHM. We'll do that," Divine Shadow said, nodding. Chapter 2838. Astonishing news when Fire Dance announced Zero Wing's plan to sell 1 million entry slots for Zero Wing City. A commotion broke out throughout the Eastern continent. Almost every power operating on the Eastern continent promptly held a meeting among their executives to discuss the entry slots. Orc Empire, Crimson Flame Fortress, How arrogant of Zero Wing. Aren't they afraid of suffering a backlash for pulling such a stunt? Snow Scar, who was now a level 130, Tier 4 Berserker, sneered as he looked at the information displayed on the conference table. They probably aren't aware that Saint's Hand has already established a city in the Black Hills, together with over a dozen superpowers. The Black Hills. This was a level 130 neutral map connected to the Valley of Death, a forbidden land. Meanwhile, the Valley of Death was also the map that current players had the best chances of exploring successfully. Although the forbidden land was dangerous, according to the reports of the Tier 4 experts who had explored it already, the number of Tier 4 legacy lands appearing inside far exceeded that of other places. There were also plenty of ancient ruins hidden in the map, which were of significant help with getting promoted to Tier 4. In fact, even Tier 4 players could reap a lot of benefits from these ancient ruins. In response to Snow Scar's words, Jing Yang, who was now a level 131, Tier 4 Great Wizard, turned to the woman exuding a heroic and charming aura, seated at the table's seat of honor. In a respectful tone he said, "Vice Guild Leader, Saint's Hand has sent us an invitation as well. They say they will offer us 10% of their new city's shares once it is constructed. However, we will need to garrison the city with one Tier 4 player and 20,000 Tier 3 players in return." How calculative of Saint's Hand. They must be aiming to have us help them deal with Zero Wing in the Orc Empire. A level 128, Tier 4 female assassin said, smirking. However, if they want to use us as pawns, don't you think that the price they're offering is too low? Snow Scar also nodded in agreement with the female assassin. The Blackwater Guild was no longer the same as it was before. Under Xueqi's lead, the guild had grown to a point where it could rival even super guilds. Moreover, unknown to the public, the guild even had 6 Tier 4 experts already. Jing Yang, tell Saint's Hand that they need to show more sincerity if they want to partner with us. We want at least 30% of the city's shares, Xueqi said, opening her eyes. Also, notify Zero Wing of Saint's Hand's actions. Tell them that Blackwater is willing to partner with Zero Wing to go up against Saint's Hand's alliance. However, in return, they must allow all of Blackwater's elite members into Zero Wing City. Vice Guild Leader. You know how Zero Wing operates. If it were before he had visited the ancient god's domain, he would indeed have no way of accomplishing such a feat. However, after his trip to the ancient era, he did. And that was by using the ancient beast sculpture. This was because the ancient beast statue would reveal its properties only in an environment with incredibly dense mana. Moreover, these properties were noticeable only at close distance. If one stood too far away from the statue, one wouldn't sense anything special about it. In fact, placing the statue in a room would even cause the density of the mana in the room to drop. In the past, some players had even treated the ancient beast statues as junk and sold them cheap. At Shifeng's advice, Kola and the others approached the statue. And when everyone got within 10 yards of the ancient beast statue, their expressions promptly changed. How is this possible? The operating principles of mana have become much clearer. There's at least a 50% improvement. As a Tier 4 player, Fire Dance was the quickest to notice the changes the ancient beast statue brought about, and she couldn't help gaping at the statue in disbelief. Assuming that she could view the operating principles of mana at only 10% clarity under normal circumstances, then in Zero Wing City's environment, she could view the operating principles at 20% clarity. However, standing beside the ancient beast statue, she could view the operating principles at 30% clarity. Kola and the others did not achieve as good a result as Fire Dance since they were still at Tier 3. However, they still managed to achieve a clarity of at least 20%. At this time, their perception of the operating principles of mana was superior to the average Tier 4 players. Now, they were basically viewing the world around them from a higher perspective than even Tier 4 players. As Tier 3 players, the benefits they could gain from such an experience were immeasurable. If this situation leaked to the public, the various powers of God's domain would most likely go crazy. Fire Dance finally understood why Shifeng had instructed her to be extremely careful when coming to this place and even limiting the people she could invite to only the guild's core executives. The next moment, the isolated room fell indescribably quiet. This was because Kola, Alluring Summer, and everyone else had wholeheartedly thrown themselves into their enhanced perception with no intention of exiting this immersion. Xueqi did not find this situation surprising, either. After obtaining world authority, his perception of the operating principles of mana had reached an incredibly high level. Within the ancient beast statue's vicinity, he could even achieve a 40% clarity. Back when he was controlling Ferbero, a half-step demon king, he had only managed to achieve a 50% clarity, yet he already had a feeling of invincibility. Of course, this was only a misconception arising from suddenly obtaining so much power. Even so, the brief experience of viewing the world through Ferbero's senses had provided him with immense help in developing his mana body and improving his control over mana. Immediately, the colorful crystal in Fire Dance's hand released several streaks of light that flowed straight into her eyes. Simultaneously, a large amount of information was transmitted directly into her brain. Chapter 2840. Consecutive breakthroughs. As information from the Sword Saint's legacy flooded Fire Dance's mind, the mana she exuded strengthened and weakened in intervals. It was evident that she had received a lot of inspiration from the legacy. Both her control over mana and understanding of mana rose at a visible rate. Seeing this development, Xueqi couldn't help growing envious. Truthfully, he had constantly been thinking of using the Sword Saint's legacy himself ever since he received it. However, he also understood that he wouldn't benefit much from it. This was because the current bottleneck he faced wasn't related to mana but his concentration. To raise the strength of his mana body to a whole new level, he needed to raise his concentration to a point where he could control his mana body with a threefold manipulation method. Hence, using the Sword Saint's legacy now would simply be a waste. I should start training and adapting to a threefold manipulation method as well. Xueqi smiled involuntarily when he saw everyone in the room improving rapidly. Then, he sat down and began his own training. Back when he was in the ancient god's domain, his concentration standard had only been at the Tier 4 intermediate standard. Among Tier 4 existences, that wasn't anything to brag about. However, merging with the Tier 4 Hellfire had thoroughly tempered his concentration. He now estimated that his concentration was at the Tier 4 peak standard already. He should be only one step away from reaching the Tier 5 standard and achieving world creation. Of course, just elevating his concentration standard to Tier 5 wouldn't be enough to achieve world creation. He would still need to become a Grandmaster Magician first. This was also the main reason many players and NPCs couldn't achieve world creation even after reaching Tier 5. After all, becoming a Grandmaster Magician was incredibly challenging. Generally, most people capable of becoming a Grandmaster Magician were lifestyle Grandmasters. Yet, most of these lifestyle Grandmasters were unsuited for combat and were incapable of reaching Tier 5, only reaching Tier 4 at best. This situation was especially obvious among players. In the past, over 70% of experts that had achieved world creation were lifestyle Grandmasters stuck at Tier 4, and many experts who had risen to Tier 5 couldn't help envying those players. After all, the disparity in combat power between individuals with and without world creation was like the difference between heaven and earth. Even at Tier 5, world creation could still influence a battle. Following which, time passed swiftly. In the blink of an eye, half a day had gone by already. Amid Xueqi's repeated attempts at executing a threefold manipulation method, the mana Fire Dance exuded suddenly skyrocketed in intensity. Her rapid transformation even kicked up a mana storm, the phenomenon startling everyone in the room. If you used it, you would probably achieve even more astonishing results, Guild Leader. The legacy actually has such great effects? Xueqi couldn't help feeling tempted by Fire Dance's words. However, he still suppressed his agitated heart in the end and said calmly, "I'll pass for now. However, we can let Shadow Sword and the other swordsmen use the legacy once they reach Tier 4. Anyone with a physical class can also use it if they manage to break through the 100% threshold." Xueqi was indeed very tempted to use the Sword Saint's legacy and go beyond his mana body's present 110% completion rate. He might even be lucky enough to reach a 115% completion rate. If that happened, he would have full confidence in completing the Divine Dragon's trial. However, His current priorities were developing his concentration standard and improving his understanding of magic arrays. So long as he succeeded in doing so, combined with the Sword Saint's legacy, he could develop his mana body beyond even a 115% completion rate. In fact, once he reached level 150, he could even start trying to create a personalized mana body. After all, not every Tier 5 expert in the past had started creating personalized mana bodies only after exceeding the 110% completion rate. Many of these Tier 5 experts had tried and succeeded even at 109% and 110%. This was because there was no integral connection between a mana body's completion rate and the creation of a personalized mana body. Having a higher completion rate only meant that a player was more familiar with the mana body they currently had. At most, this familiarity would grant the player an easier time in creating a personalized mana body. It wasn't essential. As for the matter of sharing the Sword Saint's legacy, if it were possible, he would prefer to let only Tier 4 swordsmen use it. However, given the circumstances, Zero Wing didn't have 7 more Tier 4 swordsmen suitable. Hence, he had no choice but to loosen the condition. That way, the guild could produce more above-average Tier 4 players. I understand. Fire Dance nodded. Over the next 10 days, Zero Wing's core executives achieved significant breakthroughs one after another, thanks to the Ancient Beast statue. In addition, as the guild had discovered quite a number of Tier 4 legacy lands in the Arctic Canyon, everyone began challenging their Tier 4 promotion quests. As for Fire Dance, after reaching a 110% completion rate with her mana body, she led an exploration team into the Arctic Canyon, drastically increasing Zero Wing's income, particularly of top-tier level 130+ equipment and materials. The amount of equipment and materials Zero Wing was currently raking in surpassed even that of ordinary superpowers. Among the harvests Zero Wing made, the most notable one was 7 Luminaries crystals. Because the Arctic Canyon's team dungeons dropped small quantities of 7 Luminaries crystals, Zero Wing earned over 600 units of 7 Luminaries crystal in just 10 short days. Even Xueqi was astonished by this harvest. He never thought that the Arctic Canyon would be so rich in resources. Fire Dance's team was responsible for more than half of the 7 Luminaries crystals earned. At this time, he could already foresee that once Zero Wing gained more and more Tier 4 players, the guild's income of 7 Luminaries crystals would reach staggering levels. Meanwhile, Xueqi had been relatively free compared to Fire Dance and the others these past 10 days. He was also only half a step away from successfully implementing the threefold manipulation method on his mana body. However, during this time, huge events had also taken place in God's domain one after another. Firstly, there was the appearance of Saint Heart City. Secondly, the various superpowers had received news that Lu Xinglua had his qualifications as the Starline Corporation's heir stripped due to his numerous failures and that his game account had gotten crippled. This unexpected development placed heavy pressure on the heirs of the major corporations leading the various superpowers. Thirdly, the first batch of players belonging to Zero Wing's allies had entered Zero Wing City. When these 20,000 players entered the city, Zero Wing's allies instantly understood Zero Wing City's value. For a time, Zero Wing City's entry slots enjoyed even greater popularity. However, the best piece of news for Zero Wing was Gentle Snow, Aqua Rose, Zhao Yueru, Yan Tianqing, and Ilua Fei's successful promotion to Tier 4. Their success had instantly boosted Zero Wing's overall combat power by a large margin, and exploring the Arctic Canyon became a lot easier. Zero Wing City, Candlelight Trading Firm, Special Forging Room. Sure enough, reaching the Grandmaster Magician threshold isn't an easy task. A pale-faced Xueqi smiled bitterly as he looked at the Tier 3 mana set equipment he had just produced. After several days of research, he concluded that only 2 methods would let him achieve threefold manipulation: developing his concentration to the Tier 5 standard and becoming a Grandmaster Magician. For the time being, developing his concentration to the Tier 5 standard was nigh impossible since it required fortuitous encounters and undergoing tempering. This left him with raising his magician rank. Producing Tier 3 mana set equipment was one of the ways that could help him do so because the most difficult aspect of producing the set was engraving its magic array. Although the system deemed the set's magic array as only a master magic array, it rivaled even Grandmaster magic arrays in complexity. If he could successfully engrave the entire magic array in one go, he wouldn't be far off from becoming a Grandmaster Magician. Unfortunately, Even after working for several days consecutively and producing more than 200 sets of Tier 3 mana set equipment, he still couldn't engrave the set's magic array in one go. He felt as if an invisible barrier was preventing him from advancing. Meanwhile, Xueqi also happened to reach level 150, the threshold where he could get promoted to Tier 5. Guild leader, you previously asked the Boulder Corporation to look into Phoenix Rain's little sister, right? At this time, Liang Jing suddenly contacted Xueqi. They just sent back news that Phoenix Rain's little sister should be staying in Haitian City's upper zone. Read latest chapters at Wuxia World. Alright, got it. Nodding, Xueqi promptly chose to log out of God's domain and decided to pay Haitian City's upper zone. Apart from checking up on Phoenix Rain's little sister, he could also use this opportunity to broaden his business circle to Haitian City's upper zone. Every upper zone had its own contribution competition. Since the various corporations were placing such heavy importance on this season's competition, it would be a huge waste not to take advantage of it and make a killing. After all, Zero Wing was already a massive organization that had many mouths to feed. A large number of newcomers with great potential had even joined the guild's headquarters recently. There were also the resources needed to nurture Zero Wing's executives. With all the guild's resource requirements, simply relying on the 5 States Corporation would be far from enough. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.